Welcome back to October's Commissioner's Corner Show. Again, I'm Scott Vargo, joined by Commissioner Tamara Pogue and Commissioner Josh Blanchard. We're going to talk now about short-term rentals and code amendments. We talked a little bit about the incentive program. There is also another aspect to short-term rentals, and that's the regulatory environment that the Board of County Commissioners has oversight over. And so you want to talk a little bit about what you've directed staff to work on and where we're in that process.
Absolutely. So as many folks realized as we were moving into the summer season this past year, we really started to see an increase in a lot of those homes and units that were in the long-term rental market shift into the short-term rental market, or as people were selling their homes, new homeowners were taking advantage of opportunities with short-term rentals. And so several weeks ago, the Board of County Commissioners issued a moratorium on new applications for short-term rentals in what we're considering more of these sort of neighborhood communities. It was a pause on new applications, a 12-week pause, and it's hard to believe that we're several weeks already into the pause. The purpose of this moratorium or this pause was really to give us some time to dig into this data to look at these code amendments as we're talking about zoning in these residentially zoned neighborhoods. And so we've been working really hard at Summit County Government. Our staff has been diligently working to really dig into the numbers to find out what are the impacts of short-term rentals, specifically again in these kinds of traditional neighborhoods. So we're talking about places like Dillon Valley, Summit Cove, Wilderness, Peak 7, lots of these sort of neighborhoods that for many, many years really housed our workforce. And so we've taken some time to dig into what that means, and what we're looking at now is potentially overlay zones, where we're looking at areas that are a resort zone. So this would be your traditional Keystone, Copper, some neighborhoods maybe in Breckenridge, that really do seem to fit the quality and character and even infrastructure of a resort area. And then secondly, we're looking at zones that we're kind of considering more like a neighborhood zone. Again, kind of these types of higher density areas, some single family homes, but also duplexes, townhomes, condos that really for a long time have housed our workforce and our working families. And so within that, we're looking at what these overlay zones may mean. We're also looking at different types of STRs. In Summit County, when we rolled out in unincorporated Summit County a few years ago, the permitting process, it was a one-size-fits-all. And in the last years, we've been allowed to transition from permitting to STR licensing through statutory regulations from the state. We've really even recognized that the one-size-fits-all doesn't really work in Summit County. Again, these resort areas really have a different setup than neighborhoods. So we're looking at potentially three different types of short-term rental applications and short-term rental permits or licenses that would allow, for different kinds of things based on, again, the property type, the location of the property, how it fits into the character of the neighborhood. Yeah.
So, we recognize that there are a lot of locals that own short-term rentals. That would potentially be one license type. We recognize that there are a lot of second home owners who run short-term rentals and perhaps only rent their unit for, let's say, 100 nights a year. That would be a second type of a license. And then we also recognize that there are investors in Summit County that are short-term renting their units 365 days a year, and that would be our third license type. And again, this sort of multi-phased approach to licensing would only be applicable to our non-resort neighborhoods, and over the next couple weeks we'll work to fully define those neighborhoods, and we'd have sort of a different number of those licenses in the neighborhoods, the non-resort neighborhoods. We certainly want our locals to be able to continue to short-term rent. We need, quite frankly, some of these units to be available to our second homeowners, because we don't have have enough hotels to host our tourist economy. And then we recognize that those 365 days a year units really do pose a different kind of impact to our local neighborhoods. And so we're really trying to find the right balance of those three types with our traditional local workforce housing to make sure that our neighborhoods stay intact moving forward and that we continue to support a strong tourist economy moving forward.
So you mentioned balance, and I think that's one of the key things because we as a board absolutely recognize the importance that short-term rentals play in our community. But for so long, there has been sort of a natural balance, and we think, the data suggests that COVID really expedited this sort of imbalance of what that looks like. And I think that's a key thing that's really driving the conversations and the potential regulatory changes that we're looking at.
So we are looking for a lot of community input in this process, both the commissioners and our staff. We've had several town halls. We have a survey that's open right now on our website. It won't be open for too much longer in October, but at least for another few days or so. And then all of these proposals, what we land on, will go to the Countywide Planning Commission. So there'll be another opportunity there for folks to give public comment, and then it'll come back to the commissioners, and there'll be another opportunity for folks to give input directly to us. As always, we've had a lot of folks reach out via email or phone directly to Josh and I and Elizabeth, and we're happy to keep having those conversations. We want to get this right for our communities, and that means, like Josh said, we have to continue to try and find a balance between the needs of our workforce and the needs of our tourists. And I think this multi-phased approach with some overlay districts and then different types of licenses will let us do a better job of being strategic in how we go about that process.
And to your point, Tamara, so Countywide Planning Commission is currently scheduled for November, and then that would come back to the county commissioners in a December meeting. And so just so folks that are watching have a little bit of an idea on the timing. Again, there's been one town hall prior to the taping of the show. There's another one that's scheduled later this week to try to garner some additional feedback from the public as, again, the code language itself gets written. And that's a pretty cumbersome and painful process to go through. And then again, that will go in front of that planning commission and then ultimately to the commissioners for review and feedback and ultimately some level of approval we would expect. So
it's probably also important to mention that the legislature is contemplating a number of different approaches at the state level. They obviously have more authority over taxation than Summit County government does. And so we're also watching that conversation closely because we want whatever we roll out here locally to work with whatever the state lands on. So that's another conversation for folks to pay attention to in addition to what the county's doing.
That's a great point.
And lastly, I'd just say, there is really no county that has a large number of short-term rentals right now that's not contemplating some kind of regulatory reform. Summit County is not alone in this conversation, and many communities are looking at things that are perhaps more restrictive than Summit County, and some communities are looking at things that are in line with what Summit County is doing. So I do think as we contemplate or have this conversation in Summit County, it's really important to think about what else is going on across the state.
yeah.
Excellent point.
And it's important to note that Summit County has an incredibly high volume of short-term rental activity as well. Perhaps the highest in the state, depending on which metric you look at. And so it's not unusual that Summit County would be trying to take a lead in looking at these issues because it is a huge impact within our community. It has certainly positives and it has negatives. And again, back to your points earlier around balance. That's really what staff is trying to do in what it brings forward to the commissioners to look at ultimately. So.
Exactly.
All right, so last topic we wanted to talk about. So again, short-term rentals aside or included, there are employment issues within our community. Summit County government is not immune to those impacts. We have looked at our own pay. We've looked at providing housing for our employees where we can. We have taken the steps of different, sign-on bonuses and variety of other things to retain staff. We try to make our workplace as positive as we can. But much like many of the other businesses within Summit County, we're still struggling with workforce issues. And one of those areas where the general public will see that and feel that is within our transit office or transit operation. We are about 20 employees short in a staff that is normally around 60 or 65 folks. So a huge percentage short of our workforce, and that's causing changes in terms of routes and timing. And so this is twofold. This is number one, a plea for those of you that are watching, that if you want a job in a stable, positive, progressive county government operation, please apply. Go to our website. You can find all of the jobs that are available there. We would love to have you join our team, but also to provide a little bit of information with regards to transit and what you guys can look forward to as the season schedule changes.
Yeah, I mean, I was really saddened that the stage and the BOCC had to make the decision to change our frequency of our buses from every 30 minutes to every hour, and that change will go into effect at the end of the month. But it's unavoidable. When you are short one person out of every 3 in a department that runs transportation that does something that concrete, we really have no choice but to change the hours. And so it is a great place to work. We know that department in particular gets very high marks and reviews from the staff that do work there. It is stable. We offer good pay and great benefits. And so I do hope that folks will contemplate applying for that job, and you can work both part-time or full-time, and we also help pay for training. So if you've never driven a bus before, this might be your opportunity to try that. And if driving a bus isn't your thing, there are lots of other opportunities at Summit County government, so we hope folks will take a look and join the team.
Yep,
Well said.
absolutely. Yep. All right, I think that's all we've got for today. So thanks for joining us, and stick around on this channel for lots of other great local government programming.